So we're also doing source of evil, so our question is, where does evil come from? And then we've got a couple different answers from them. We wanted to touch on a larger base, which Lauren will go through.
So we decided to narrow it down to 3 basic answers as to where does evil come from, and we found that the 3 most common or logical ones were from nature, nurture, or the supernatural, and we'll get more into depth of what those actually mean.
Okay, so starting with nature, this would be anything from environmental influences as far as biology. And so we found that in pop culture and today, a lot of people are doing research in things like psychology and things like biology and trying to mix the two to answer questions like these, which kind of come about in daily life. People don't really have an answer to it yet, which is why we're still talking about it. But 2 answers would be, so if I first started genetics, I won't get too in-depth with this, but there was a study done recently, so in our pop culture in 2002, that wanted to try to link the relationship between external forces and between genes. So with this lack of an enzyme, NAOA, as well as a man being abused as a child, he's more likely to develop an antisocial personality disorder. And so while that is just one study, it does prove that today as a society we're trying to kind of find answers to a question like this by bringing in all kinds of answers. And so with that, when we're doing science and we're doing studies that give us, concrete evidence, it kind of helps people try to understand things like antisocial personality disorder, which before studies like these, it's just purely psychological, which I'll get into in the next slide. Perfect. So an example would be when you watch movies like Split, which I'm sure most of you have seen. If not, it really just touches on mental illnesses, which I found interesting that some people today don't really believe that mental illnesses are that important or are that evident. And so when you talk about where does evil come from, a good answer would be that it's really just kind of a misconstruction in your brain, and that when people have things like multi-personality disorder, it kind of proves that it's not. So in the movie, Kevin Wendell Crumb is not really himself, his biological being. He has multiple personalities that really control and do the acts of evil that he blames his other personalities for. So that could be an interesting answer for that. And then A Clockwork Orange, I added this to more talk about how we think that we can fix this kind of evil. So when it comes from psychological or biological, in the movie they do what's called aversion therapy on a man who commits crime, rape, murders, theft, all of these big, like, ultra-violence crimes. They do aversion therapy. So to them, having this guy watch all these super violent, gruesome images will make him all of a sudden disgusted at those images, therefore making him not want to commit these crimes. So it's kind of interesting that people might think that when evil comes from psychology, it can easily be as fixed with psychology. So that was kind of an interesting answer when you get into psychology and genetics.
So the next part we went into was nurture, which is more of a childhood thing. So we were saying that evil comes from your childhood surroundings, which could be your parents, could be traumatic childhood events, it could be where you lived, and saying that all of these things could affect what makes you evil, and like also the experiences you have as a child can make you evil. So the first examples we chose to do were evil in Disney films because this is one of the most prominent. The first movie we chose was Beauty and the Beast. So for the character we chose primarily for this, it was actually the prince, so the person that was turned into the beast. So you can see a lot of his selfish tendencies and bad behavior, which you can be taken as evil, actually led him to becoming this horrific monster that everybody becomes scared of. And a lot of the reasoning behind it actually has to go back to his childhood. So his mother died when he was young, and she was supposedly the good light in his life who made him a good child. And then when she died, his father took over and kind of morphed him into this evil child and gave him his evil tendencies and made him more selfish growing up, which ultimately led him to becoming the beast. And then another example is the movie Tangled, where Flynn Rider is also considered to be an evil character. He grows up with no parents, so once again he has nobody to really look up to. He doesn't know what's considered right or wrong, and he also has this book where he sees this amazing hero who's doing all of these things and gaining all of these riches, and he thinks, you know, I want to be like that, and it ends up turning around on him where he becomes a thief, and you know, he just runs amok and makes everybody hate him, and he just gains all these evil tendencies. But in reality, he really never had anybody to tell him that was wrong. He just, you know, reading it from a book, he's like, this is what I should be doing because this is his future, I want that. But really, he just didn't have anybody to tell him that's not the way to get a brighter future.
And we also looked at evil in films, and one of the best examples of evil in films is the villains in like superhero movies and whatnot. So first we looked at Harry Potter. I know it's a book as well. But we looked at Voldemort and why he was evil. And so his father left him before he was born, and his mother died in childbirth. So he grew up in an orphanage, and the orphanage was very run by like power, driven like power greedy people. And so that's all he saw growing up, and he didn't have any family love or anything to guide him. So growing up, and then also in Hogwarts, he was taught to seek power at all costs. And so growing up, being taught that over and over again, his whole life was in pursuit of power, and that just led him to evil. And then also Lex Luthor in Superman, he started off as like a regular, like good person, and then his dad, he had like a really harsh childhood growing up, and his dad was very power driven as well. And when his relationship, he had a friend that had really good family life, and his relationship with him crumbled, and then he was very like jealous, and so all he was basing his actions off of was jealousy, and then also what he saw with his father and his bad childhood, and that drove him to evil. And so in both of these we can see that the parents are the cause of it, because that's all the kids see growing up. And so then on another level, when kids watch these movies, if they were nurtured poorly, they see this, and it's kind of like a reiteration of what they've known growing up, and that can lead them to make more evil actions like the characters they see in these films.
Alright, and then so we also decided to cover the supernatural aspect of it. Religion and supernatural forces play a huge role in providing us with the answers as to where evil comes from. The religious and supernatural answers to the origin of evil are demonstrated all throughout pop culture. As for the religious aspect of it, most religions do have an origin of evil. I'm going to talk about the origin of evil from the perspective of Christianity and the perspective of Hinduism. So, the origin of evil from Christianity's perspective can be found in the Bible. Genesis 3 first talks about the origin of evil, where it introduces the snake, also known as a serpent, who's disguised as Satan, convinces Eve to eat the forbidden fruit, which God said not to eat, and Eve also convinces Adam, her partner, to eat the fruit. This is the first example of sin and evil experienced by people. The origin of evil from the Christian perspective comes from this Satan, also known as the devil who occupies hell. And a big part of this is also man's free will to choose between the two. So man can either choose to be good or to be evil and bad. Good representing God in heaven, and bad representing hell and the devil. Origin of evil's perspective regarding Hinduism. According to Hinduism, evil represents impurity, darkness, imbalance, extremity, chaos, sinful conduct, and selfishness. So, existence is a constant struggle between order and chaos. Evil comes from the demons who try to disturb this divine order, while the gods try to uphold it. The divinities are represented by by good, and the demons represent the bad. Karma also applies to evil in the Hindu religion, as bad or selfish actions are considered evil, resulting in bad or selfish karma, or bad karma. So things that represent and showcase the Christian view towards the origin of evil can be seen in movies such as Angel Heart, Hercules, Little Nicky, and Legend. Legend is one of these movies where Tim Curry plays this devil role. It's like a little bit of an older movie, And then Jack, the like protagonist, ends up in the end killing this devil-like character. So it's kind of a battle between good and evil, and this evil is represented in the devil. And then music for Christianity can be seen in movies such as Sympathy for the Devil, Running with the Devil, and Devil in Her Heart. And they kind of just showcase the Christian view in that they talk about the devil a little bit and like humans or people's fight with like this evil in their lives. Regarding Hinduism's explanation shown in pop culture, movies such as The Exorcist, Demon, The Conjuring, Sinister, they all have these demon characters in them, in which the plots usually consist of people, families having to fight against these demons. Usually demons take over their lives. For example, in Sinister, Boogle, the devil or like demon character, what he does is takes like control of the children and makes them kill their families, which is like really horrific. So this kind of makes, like, as it's seen a lot throughout pop culture, it makes people really, really like, this is like one of the biggest like examples seen for like evil, because like everyone watches movies, so everyone's gonna be like, well, demons, evil. As for music goes, Demons by Imagine Dragons is one of these songs that talks about demons. It talks about a guy's battle within a demon within himself, trying to protect his lover from the evil in the world and the evil in himself.
And the second part to the supernatural answer to the origin of evil, we kind of grouped together as the paranormal. So the first thing that came to my mind is the show Stranger Things. The story follows these 4 boys in a small town, and all of the conflicts that they come up with are because these scientists have kind of tapped into this alternate dimension, and all these paranormal forces are coming into their physical world, which causes problems. And the second one, kind of like what Riley was talking about, are spirits and demons. We find these in horror movies, lots of which are really popular in our pop culture. And the one I was looking at is The Conjuring, where these unseen evil forces are taunting and torturing and even like possess their human victims, and so it's a constant struggle between fighting those. Another example is kind of like a dark magic. So Marlie was talking about Voldemort and in Harry Potter, and how his thirst for power and his want to increase his dark magic abilities caused him to just become this huge evil character in that story. And another example is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So the evil queen, who then later turns into the evil witch, she uses her dark magic to create the poison apple to kill Snow White so that she can be the fairest in the land. And then the last example I have kind of combines a couple of these ideas. It's like voodoo magic, which is a really big theme in the movie The Princess and the Frog, which is a Disney movie. The prince and his valet kind of get into it with the voodoo man, which kind of unleashes this dark magic of demons and spirits that come into their physical world and taunt them and torture them.
And then, so in review, we decided that evil can come from a lot of sources, and mainly that's about your genetic makeup, your environment when you grow up as a child, and then supernatural forces.
And then kind of in conclusion, we had a couple big talks where we decided that they're all of these 3 separate answers are actually interconnected, and they play off of each other, and that's why the examples we gave kind of showcase more than one aspect of evil and where it comes from.
Yeah, and like every movie, I feel like we could relate almost everything that had an issue, or like saying like childhood, you could even relate it to like, you know, like Harry Potter. Like there's always some way to like interconnect these. So in the end, we feel like almost every single one of these answers could just count as like one huge answer to this question. Do you guys have any questions or anything? Okay, thank you.